In 2025, gaming is somewhat gone boring, but here are 31 games, no matter when you play it, will always touch your soul and you would say it's perfect. Starting off with Spec Ops: The Line. Spec Ops: The Line is set in Dubai, where a massive sandstorm have buried the city. You, Captain Walker, and 2 other American soldiers are sent as a team to rescue and find out what happened to the previous rescue squad that were sent to Dubai. No one can probably guess that this game is from 2012, looking at how perfectly all elements, whether it is gameplay or mechanics, sound design, story, are being merged into one. There are parts of this game that will stick with you for years to come. To suggest that this is merely a game would be an injustice. It is a masterpiece. It is a well-crafted story that took me places I never wanted to go. Like Oliver Stone Platon, it's a powerful story with a strong narrative and super voice acting that you must experience to be understood. To get into any more detail would be giving away too much. A must play for sure. Next we have Crysis 3, truly an underrated gem. The first thing people talks about it when it comes to Crysis is the graphics, and it's quite amazing to realize that this game is 11 years old by now and still look really good. Crysis 3 sort of tries to combine the best part of the franchise, and the gameplay itself is more of an overhaul of its prequels. The control remains pretty much the same, all the weapons are carried over and the suit mode works just the same. However, what has been changed for the better. I remember coming back from school, straight away jumping into my PC just to play Crysis 3. If you haven't played it yet, do give it a try, you'll absolutely love it. Next we have La Nore. Hands down one of the best detective games that I have ever played. I love the Nore style and all the characters are well thought out and well written. L.A. Nore is a detective thriller set against the backdrop of 1940s Los Angeles, beautifully recreated with stunning attention to detail. As Detective Cole Phelps, you solve a series of crimes uncovering corruption and conspiracy. The game's revolutionary facial animation technology makes every interrogation and conservation feels real, drawing into its gripping narrative. I believe this game still doesn't get the recognition it deserves, but it's great to see more and more people experiencing this gem. It is definitely one of the best detective games, which I believe that needs to be placed to try this game before you die a list. Next up, DMC Devil May Cry. DMC Devil May Cry is an action-adventure hack-and-slash hailing all the way from the brainchild of Ninja Theory, originally getting some negative reviews, but it has improved a lot. The story will make you fall in love in the game. The game's engine is near to being absolutely perfect and intense. Playing the role of Dante, you have a strong circulative arsenal, such as performing combos by slice of his sword, keep the enemy stunned, and jiggling with his twin, MLS pistol, Ebony and Ivory. A great hack and slash title that I doubt 80% of those hate comments wouldn't even exist. A must try for sure for all the hack and slash fans. Next up, we have Sleeping Dogs. I would 100% recommend this to everyone. This game is just awesome. The story is well written and makes you want to know what's going to happen next. The fighting mechanics with the combination combat is next level. Sleeping Dogs is one of those underrated games in a GTA-like feel genre, and it's more like an action-oriented and unique among its genre. It's very different from the rest of the GTA genre games, as they all use firearms for most of the combat. I won't be surprised to see that Sleeping Dogs going to the list of top open world games of all time. The story is a little bit of short, but compelling and interesting. There is an additional DLC content that adds some more things to do and separates smaller storylines. The environment also feels very alive, and vendors always try to harass you. In my opinion, a nearly masterpiece of what it is. Next up, Max Payne 3. I'm a big fan of the entire series of Max Payne. Max Payne 3 is an outstanding action shooter that offers a strong narrative with a high cinematic experience. If you are someone who wants raw action and doesn't want to see a lot of cutscenes or kill cams, then you may not enjoy this. However, if you are someone who enjoys the game to play like movies, then this is something you must play. In my opinion, Max Payne 3 is one of the best cinematographic action games ever made, and likely will be for a long period of time. The whole experience is brought together nicely by solid graphics and animation, high level of attention to details, and advanced physics, and also particle effects. I highly recommend Max Payne 3 to anyone who enjoy a heavily cinematic action shooter and who would appreciate the amazing writing. It's one of the best play like a movie game ever made. Next up, we have Watch Dogs. An endlessly entertaining game with elements of Grand Theft Auto, but a more compelling story and a unique hacking mechanism that makes it far more more interesting to play than GTA. The plot is linear, but there's enough to do between campaigns and missions that Chicago setting feels like a genuine open world, and though the graphics may not be stable of the art, the city looks great even without the volumetric lightning effects. Watch Dogs will always be the best in the series considering it as a whole package. An open world game where you can manipulate technically everything with a stunning storyline and incredible graphics. Being a 10-year-old game, it is a must play for all. Next up, Rise of the Tomb Raider, one of the best sequel to an already great masterpiece. It plays very similar to the 2013 game, again more action oriented but still got some nice puzzles in some levels to do solve. Not as hard as the older games do, but they make it for the entertainment factor. And it has better story, a standalone story. It is not an easy to keep the expectation for a sequel and go way forward of it, which is an outstanding feat for the devs. With its breathtaking scenery of the snowy mountains and hidden temples, it will keep you glued to the screen for hours and hours. The cutscenes, though frequent and on the longer side, never tend to bore the player, but rather immerse him with a great and exciting story. The content is extensive and there's plenty to see and do. Through puzzles, do trend to get a bit repetitive towards the later stage. A solid 10 on 10 for me. A must-play game for all as it sits right now. Next up, Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain. What makes Metal Gear Solid 5 an absolute recommendation, however, is the fact that there hasn't been anything like it. As is the tradition with Metal Gear, it revolutionized the stealth genre in a way that many modern games fail to replicate even today. It offers the greatest and the most fluid form of tactical action with endearing and skillful gameplay loop. The focus on building a Mercury PF allows you for a level of organic progression that rewards diligent and masterful gameplay, as abducting soldiers and building you force unlock new weaponry and new ways for your PF to support you in the mission. Open in nature allows for a staggering amount of flexibility, and simply listing the few examples that would come in my mind is seriously difficult and time consuming. It is a long game, approximately like 200 hours to finish all, which is perfect for a player who is into open world stealth games. All I can say is it's the best masterpiece created by Kojima. Next up, Batman Arkham Knight. This is a cinematic masterpiece. It's truly the magnum opus of the Arkham series. In my opinion, it's one of the best games made till date. There was so much care put into making this game, from the big moments of all the way down to the smaller details. It's truly a great game. Initially released on PC, it has some issues, but now most of the bugs has been fixed. The graphics are amazing, especially if you have a decent rig to run it on max settings. As of now, beautifully polished, amazing art direction for the city, best voice actors ever to play Batman and associated characters, extremely tight mechanics and fascinating story. The gameplay is fun and you can sit for hours just stomping down mobs of the enemy. You would get addicted to the combat of this game, that's for sure, and driving the Batmobile around the city. A truly must play for all. Next up, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Black Flag is competing to be the best Assassin's Creed title ever since Assassin's Creed 2. The reason for choosing it over Assassin's Creed 2 was only the graphics. Otherwise, both Assassin's Creed 2 and Black Flag can be put on the same boat. Not only the story is well written to a point that not only the gamer relates to the main character, a pirate named Edward Kenway, it also creates an emotional tie with an adventure and exploration of sailing the high seas and hunting treasures and other bounties while discovering more about assassins, the Templars, and the secret of both. Now, the best things to do in the game is exploring the Caribbean with your ship, the Jackdaw. You can go searching for treasures and plundering ships for cargo that is important to upgrade your ship and yourself. Combat system in the game is sort of simple, and that's what's good for the game. Sometimes simple things makes a lot of difference. Many would say the game has some flaws, but for this game, I would highly recommend you to play and then you judge how it is. Next up, Quantum Break. Probably the most underrated game on the list. Quantum Break is a third-person shooter, linear, full of cutscenes, and it does even include a full act mini-series between the chapters. In my case, this is a good thing. Production is on a very high level. Voice acting, directing, graphics, and a bunch of smaller things that will come along the way are top-notch. The center of the story focuses on time travel, which is to our understanding a paradox by itself. But there are been movies and some games that took that motive very seriously and tried to explain to us how it may look if we try to change the past or influence the future. Quantum Break is one of them, and they did a very good job in that field. Taking back to 2016, Quantum Break was way ahead of time in terms of both graphics and mechanics. It's a sort of those games where player would be curious to know what would happen next in the story. Very highly recommended and give the game the attention it deserves. Next up, Dying Light. Who doesn't like a good zombie game? Dying Light is one of those games that does many things right, and it is a whole lot of fun. Techland created a zombie game in the vein of Dead Island with huge improvement. The zombie world of Dying Light revolves around a great premise. The side quests range from somewhat fun to damn cool. There are many different scenarios, and they are events and occurrences that would be more than likely occur in the post-apocalyptic world. There are 44 side quests. While they may not be all worth doing, the player may be surprised by some of the adventures they bring. The parkour is fluid and connected, while building off of climbing and jumping mechanics that makes free running exhilarating. It starts off slow, but once you get going with the agility skill tree, free running is really fun. I highly recommend putting points in the fall damage, mitigating, and forward roll. After having played for about 50 hours of Dying Light, I can genuinely say that this is one of the best single-player co-op campaign games out there. It is one of those better games that has been released in the recent years and definitely stands out from the crowd of the new-gen games. Next up, Titanfall 2. One of the most smoothest, fast-paced first-person shooter games out there. It is probably one of the most shortest but the best games I have played personally. The gameplay is genuinely fun. The assortment of the guns is great. You can pick your playstyle, either going with a sniper type gun or blasting it full on with a shotty, and the Titans are fun to control as well. Titanfall 2 comprises of an action-packed campaign that clocks in about 6 hours. Titanfall 2 is an incredibly well-placed action first-person shooter that is definitely worth your time and attention, as it showcases some of the best work of Respawn Entertainment. If you're a big fan of FPS game and never played Titanfall 2, I would highly recommend you the campaign. It is one of those games when the campaign gets over, you will feel sad and want to rerun it again. Next up, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Hellblade is a third-person action game where the player controls a Celtic woman called Senua who is fighting through hell to rescue the soul of her dead lover from the Norse's god. The melee combat system is really enjoyable. You're armed with a sword and you have got 4 basic moves: quick attack, strong attack, dodge, and parry. Hellblade is a kind of like a permanent death mechanic in place. You have got an unspecified amount of lives, and each time you die, a dark black rot grows up on Senua's right arm. If it reaches her brain, she dies permanently and your save file will be deleted. This is something new which was introduced in this game. The better kind of puzzles involves interacting with objects to change the layout of the environment. Throughout the game, you'll frequently hear several whispering voices, which seem to be representation of Senua's internal hopes, doubts, and fears. These voices are sometimes helpful or sportive, but mostly they taunt you and try to make you doubt yourself. Probably the best sound design in the game in this list, a must-try for sure. Next up, A Plague Tale of Innocence. Underrated masterpiece. Very emotional story, good characters, fun gameplay, detailed levels, and very good atmosphere. The music is incredible and interesting rat mechanics. Atmospheric storytelling at its best. I was really astounded how the animators and the programmers managed to build the rat physics. It's really incredible how rats dynamic behave with the environment and enemies. The chemistry between Amicia and Hugo and the journey was an extremely emotional, charming, and exciting. With elements of stealth and suspense, the game creates a unique atmosphere of horror of those who needs to survive amid an infestations of millions of rats and other problems. Even with a limited gameplay and small bugs, the game brings a plot of entertainment and manages to get out of the sameness of current games that drink more and more from the same sources. If you love an 18 to 20 hours of adventure emotional game, this game is a must play. Next up, Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is a short but exciting game, especially during the action sequence with a lot of movements and fast-paced action. The decisions in the different story all make you feel related on a personal level to them, and it is bound to keep you interested until the end. The game looks incredibly beautiful with keeping a solid grip on the story and freedom you have in how you shape it. The replayability, allowing you to explore entirely different developments of the events, benefits from its short playthrough nature. While suffering from a bit of having a replay prologue, is a fantastic game to revisit once you beat it. At its core, Detroit Become Human is a masterclass in storytelling. The game immerses you in a nature-full Detroit where androids and humans coexisted uneasily. You'll assume the role of 3 distinct android protagonists, each with their own gripping tale to tell. The writing is impeccable, delving deep into the themes of identity, free will, and the nature of humanity itself. The characters are richly developed, their struggles and aspiration invoking genuine emotions as a guide their path. I recommend this for those who enjoy a good story, breathtaking looking games, and decision making. Next up, Sekiro Shadow Die Twice. This game is undoubtedly one of the toughest games ever, but simultaneously one of the best. The combat style, story, art style, enemy design, the stress you feel, and the feeling you get when you beat a tough boss all joined together to give you this masterpiece. Fast-pacing, engaging combat, which requires your concentration and punishes you for every mistake. It plays fair and teaches you how to fight perfectly, and if you learn your lesson, it will be the most satisfying combat ever. Very fluid animations and clashing sounds, which becomes the music. But beside the combat, the game has some more to offer. The stunning visuals of mountainous Japan, filled with gorgeous castle and temples, detailed armor of a human warrior, and fascinating creatures, which, as I suspect, are inspired by Japanese mythology. The game on whole feels very Japanese, but it doesn't require you to know almost anything about the culture beforehand. The story is clear and quite linear, yet you can have 4 different endings. There are not so many characters, but each one of them has a story to tell. Plus, some pieces of the lore can be found in item description and environment. If you pay attention to the lore, it becomes more deep and complex. If you're a fan of a game who gives you some real challenge, Sekiro Die Twice is a must try. Next up, Days Gone. Days Gone is a third-person action adventure set in a post-apocalyptic USA 2 years after a pandemic transformed most of the people into monsters. Players impersonated Deacon, an ex-soldier, now a part of a biker gang, of which, however, only he and his best friend Boozer remain. Hell-bent on finding Sarah, the love of his life, Deacon embarks on an epic, dangerous journey across the wasteland. The individual element of Days Gone, which already noteworthy on their own, come together in a beautiful symphony of an post-apocalyptic survival. The thrill of navigation, the landscape on your trusty motorcycle is an experience not to be missed. The game encourages you to take your time, savor the story, immerse yourself fully into this captivating world on the brink of a collapse. Beside the main storyline, you have optional side missions to complete in each camp location, which include clearing out Mirador camps and outposts, burning down infestation areas, and gaining access to nearer checkpoints to boost up your stats. Overall, Days Gone is an exceptional survivor zombie game with many a 50-hour game time with a fantastic story and satisfying combat. Highly recommended. Next up, God of War and God of War Ragnarok. Both the games are masterpieces. Some say that God of War 2018 was better in terms of story. Playing God of War 2018 on PC, saying it's one of the great PC port would be an understatement. The game is well written and features an excellent voice cast with equal parts of serious and humorous writing. The God of War is a semi-open world game with heavy story focus steep on Norse mythology. These elements serve it a well-engaging experience throughout the surprising long playtime of 40 hours or 100% completion in my case. The game's art style is an excellent one and really holds up the otherwise not particularly technically impressive graphics. The map is gorgeous and it has plenty to explore, level up and improve weapons, and that's not everything. You'll get a detailed story about the Norse mythology and meeting different characters and gods. God of War Ragnarok. After the success of God of War 2018, expectations were very high and the devs were in extreme pressure to keep up with the standard they put in the prequel. God of War Ragnarok is a pinnacle of modern gaming, not simply in terms of jaw-dropping visuals and engaging gameplay that absolutely improves on its prequel, but also in regards to its grand yet often beautifully simplistic storytelling that accentuates even the most vile of the villains to levels of understanding and even empathy at times. For instance, Odin, the All-Father, who is definitive antagonist of the game, is often seen as being a kindly old man who just seeks knowledge to avoid conflict and further bloodshed. Thor, who grapples early in the story against Kratos, is a dumb brute who is trying to improve his violent ways for his family and wants to help his daughter survive. From just a pure storytelling standpoint, God of War Ragnarok is a masterpiece that rivals even most thought-provoking and cinematic films in the Hollywood nowadays. It may be not epic or brutal as the first God of War games, but Kratos has changed greatly since then, and the stories have too. A must-play for everyone. Next up, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is exceptional. In your hands is the best superhero game that has ever felt. On your eyes, it's a pure 2-to-the force of what PlayStation 5 can do. On your heart, it's heavy and exciting. The open world is a tonic. The characters are riot. The villains are unbelievable in the best way. Suspense and disbelief in a neat little web above your head. Dive in with your mask pulled tight over the face and prepare yourself for the VENTUS, the most earnest action of 2023. It is a 20 or so hour hoot you're not going to be able to put down until the post-credit scene has rolled out. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a superior spectacle, stuff action adventure that provides players with the ultimate superhero fantasy, full of surprising, heart and delicate moments that balance beautiful with a sort of blockbuster superhero bombast that its developers has refined to a fine art. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a polished, unparalleled masterwork that redefines the superhero video game genre at large and is better than the previous two games in every way imaginable. This is exactly what you want if you're a superhero fan. Next up, Metro Exodus. Personally, a very big fan of the entire Metro series. At the first glance, Metro Exodus might seem like a typical FPS with a couple of twists, and while it doesn't really offer anything groundbreaking, it's a perfect example of a whole package being greater than some of its parts. Metro Exodus is a masterful execution of a dying breed of video game, the measured, fine-tuned, linear single-player action game. From start to finish, it's an amazing thrill ride that rarely takes a moment to catch breath, and it lacks the bloated filler that plagues so many other games these days. A must try for everyone, but I would do recommend you to play the prequels before getting into the game. Next up, Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is an open world adventure game set in the 13th century feudal Japan and seeks to deliver a gripping tale of one man's struggle to face the demons who have evaded his home and the demons that he struggled within. Ghost of Tsushima is a well-written and a paced plot that delivers substantial emotional investment in Jin's story and the fate of the entire island. This is done by tailored quest lines, side stories, and considerable quantities of collectibles that provide insights into the state of the world and what has led to the current situation. Combat is a blast, mixing stealth and epic sword fights that make you feel like a real samurai. The story is gripping, following Jin's journey as he learns to fight in new ways to protect his people. It is not just about the action, the games also offer quiet moments of beauty and reflect. The graphics, swordplay, and the music represent the pinnacle of excellent visuals that are breathtakingly detailed, a combat system that is incredibly satisfying, and a score that perfectly complements the game's atmosphere. A truly perfect 10 on 10 game which is a must play for all. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is truly a masterpiece. It deserves the place of one of the best RPG titles to have ever graced the gaming world. From its expansive open world to its legendary storytelling and outstanding gameplay, the game sets the bar impossibly high for what an RPG can achieve. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a very extensive game. There is a wide variety of content and form of gameplay and form of play within the game that will surely make the player play for hundreds of hours. It has epic storytelling with a variety of interesting characters. The Witcher 3 offers the best storyline I have ever seen. You can decide almost anything, both minor and major things. All characters in the game have their own story, which is really awesome. Velen is a land that has suffered a war and gives you the real authentic touch of how medieval land looks like, just like the Novigard, which is just how one middle-aged city look like. Graphics are beautiful, and honestly, I haven't seen an RPG game like it. After that, you can have epic side quests with amazing lore and seriously huge map to explore. By huge, I mean the biggest map of one highly complex video game in history. The level customization to your weapons, armors, and magic is immense. Side quests often feel like an individual games and of themselves in terms of brilliant characters and perfect plot. Should you play Witcher 3? Well, I would say just one thing: this is the greatest RPG game ever made in the history of video games. Next up, Cyberpunk 2077. From one CD Projekt game to another, Cyberpunk 2077 initially released did have a lot of issues in the game, and for that reason, I waited for the devs to patch and fix the problem. As of right now, the game is well balanced, optimized, and smooth, and almost perfect. The graphics are generally breathtaking. On the surface, Night City is a sight to behold, especially the ray trace lighting really shines with all the neon lights everywhere, giving the city a realistic, eye-gasmatic look. The illusion of breathing, living world fall apart though if you look too closely. The main story is awesome and is the reason that made me keep playing Cyberpunk until the end. Some of the side quests also tells unique and interesting stories that add the value to the overall experience and tone of the game. Depending on which side quest you did and partially which decision you made, there are few different endings. The gunplay feels generally solid, there's a lot of varieties of ranged weaponry, the stealth gameplay also works quite well, and with its quick hack mechanics mistakes, which can be fun at times. It is a stunning masterpiece of storytelling, gameplay, and technology that will blow your mind and immerse you in rich and vibrant world of Dark Future. If you're looking for a game that will challenge you, thrill you, make you feel like a badass cyberpunk mercenary, look no further than Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk is not a game for everyone. It is a game for those who love cyberpunk. It is a game that will make you laugh, cry, rage, awe. It is a game that will challenge you, inspire you, and surprise. This game will stay with you for a long period of time after you finish it. This game will make you feel, think, and dream. Highly recommended if not played. Next up, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection. It's an amazing collection. Uncharted 4 is one of the best games ever, and The Lost Legacy is a great standalone. Huge environments, a lot of variety. You would never get bored. Everything is so polished and fun to explore. There's always a new mechanic being introduced, new gun, new style of enemy, new way of traversal, and the developer paced the action and puzzle areas very well, with a consistent and deliberate rising sense of excitement where you can't wait to see what's gonna happen around the corner. The stories and characters are interesting, often unfolding in an unexpected ways. Even when you expect a twist, they found ways of inserting additional surprises such as ambushes and betrayals or near misses to keep you on your toes. Every encounter is a spectacle of bullets, sparklers, and explosions. All the guns are fun to use, the melee is fast and snappy, protagonists are responsive and easy to control. It's a joy to maneuver and surprise your enemies with the wildest improvised tactics you can come up with. And I think that's where the game shines the most, being creative with the tools that you are given. Fair to admit, the game has spectacular views. Every small stone feels incredibly realistic. Devs managed to create a beauty. However, better to say, capture the true beauty of nature. Environment made you feel like I'm right in the game. Each time I was immersed into the story, completely absorbed. Literally didn't notice how time went by. As for the gameplay, Naughty Dog really knows how to grab players' interest. Early chapters with young Nathan leaving the orphanage through rooftops is brilliant. I'm familiar with action games. After all those big games I have played, I find climbing in Legacy of Thieves charming because it never ceased to surprise me by the climbing path or the emergencies of a beautiful scenario. One of the best PC port from Sony, an excellent job by Naughty Dog. Highly recommend. Next up, we have Elden Ring. Elden Ring, while being imperfect, is the best implementation of open world RPG game that I have ever played. It feels like accumulation of every iteration of FromSoft's Souls game into a truly amazing experience filled with intrigue, struggle, and eventual triumph. Elden Ring is an open world game, and there are various secrets hidden away in every corner of the map. It is to your advantage to seek out these locations to find rare materials and unique weaponry that may or may not change your playstyle altogether. The open world feels like there's always something waiting for you to discover, such as powerful enemy drop or unique weapon arts or an NPC standing around waiting to offer you a quest. With the introduction of day and night cycle, there are some bosses that only spawn at nighttime in some specific locations waiting to ambush you, but also offers unique drops as well. Long story short, Elden Ring has shattered into fragments, and various demigods took the pieces to gain the fragments' powers within them. In terms of graphics, Elden Ring doesn't break new grounds when it comes to overall presentation, but it's a very colorful game compared to the previous Souls game. You can really tell when you enter into a new region when all the color transitions come into one palette to another, the sky and the landscape dramatically change as well. Combat feels the best, and it has ever been in a Souls game. Sneak attacks, jump attacks, Ash War, NPC summons, mounted combat, guard counters, power stacing, and everything else feels very, very good. Elden Ring sets my bar of open world RPG standard. The added gameplay features like jumping, horse riding, sneaking, action all make the game's action much more interesting and fun than the previous FromSoft game. One of the top RPG games in the recent time and very highly recommended if you like challenging open world RPG games. Next up, Last of Us Remastered. At launch, the game was unplayable due to heavy number of bugs and VRAM issues. The Last of Us is a fantastic story-driven shooter stealth looter and a horror game, and as far as the actual content of the game goes, it's a 10-plus-year-old masterpiece of storytelling and immersion worth playing through again in its overhauled Part 1 glory. Cutscenes are now rendered in real time to have stunning effect. Facial animations and other advanced graphical techniques bask into realism as you become gripped with complex themes of love, loss, and survival. Woven inside a post-apocalyptic narrative is a nuisance stealth action gameplay that can challenge any player with an array of difficult settings. Newcomers to the franchise, thanks to the HBO series, are also in a real treat. It's one of the best video games of all time. The melee combat is the most satisfying experience I've ever had since I played Mad Max, and I love the melee combat in that game. I just wish this game was longer, from the realism of upgrading your weapons in a workbench to phenomenal soundtrack. The landscapes, everything was developed with how detailed the facial animations are, everything was developed with so much of care. Even the letters you find around the world tell a story and make the world feel so real, like something happened in each of those empty buildings. The experience of Last of Us is amazing since it's not a supernatural or a sci-fi story, but rather something which we can relate regardless of the circumstance. A truly 10 on 10 for anyone having a decent PC must try to play Last of Us in its full potential at least once. Next up, Grand Theft Auto 5. Probably the most popular game in this century. A game originally released in 2013 and then in PC in 2015, still having this much of hype. Every day a lot of players are into the game, making it the best game in the planet. There would be a handful of people who have never heard about GTA 5. The city of Los Santos is surrounding region of riddled with fine details and wacky pedestrians. The world feels so lived in thanks to the fact that there are so much hidden beneath the surface. I mean literally, there are secrets in the ocean if you're willing to explore them. Not only that, though they are just hidden corners of the map, woods, mountains, there's always something weird turbine. Now of course the city of Los Santos feels really unique and alive, with the people bustling around, cars, traffic, and a typical open world prime game stuff that will have really nice eye for a detail down to homeless people sheltering themselves in the Hollywood upper class being themselves. The game is absolutely beautiful. Even the most minimal detail in the game is amazing. Rockstar has curved the beautiful sculpture over the last year. Beautiful storyline, graphics, characters, and everything. Moreover, GTA Online is still a popular game and its numbers are increasing day by day with about 200,000 players every single day. That's a massive world and a massive achievement for the entire GTA 5 patch. Probably there are less than 1% player in this world who have never played the game. And if you're one of those, this is probably an understatement. Please play the game. Your vision with open world game will change drastically. Last but not the least, Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a sprawling western tale of royalty, conviction, and a piece of infamy, chronicling the inevitable collapse of a motley crew of Wild West holdouts kicking against the slow march of civilization and industrialization. Set in Rockstar's most authentic and live-in open world ever, there are so many things to do, so many people to meet, and so many places to explore. It is extremely overwhelming. Rockstar Games is known for setting benchmarks when it comes to their open world title. Red Dead Redemption 2 is their best work till date without a doubt. Unquestionably beautiful, vast, and detailed. It breathes life. From the tiniest toad to the scariest grizzly bear, everything feels alive and convincing. It is an environment so well crafted that it makes you wonder whether it is in the real world within your own computer. Non-playable characters have their own lives with a routine that they follow religiously just like we do. Some do hard work, some drink all day, some mourn around their loss. The story is one of the best in the gaming industry. The Wild West setting has never been done more perfectly than in Red Dead Redemption 2 by Rockstar. It's crafted that every human emotion is expressed at least once throughout the whole game. The story depicts a group of bandits going through a pain, sadness, pleasure, fear, anger, while telling a lot about royalty and betrayal. As the quote says, each betrayal begins with a trust. The environment, characters, personality, and voices, and also the quest are spot-on perfect implementation in the game. Even the horses are royal with companions that build the innocent and special bond with Arthur, the main character, despite him being a bad person in the story. The way they respond to our whistle and get frightened when seeing a predator, and the main character calming them down are small things that impact the player. All in all, Red Dead Redemption 2 stands shoulder to shoulder with Grand Theft Auto 5 as one of the greatest games of the modern age. It is a gorgeous depiction of an ugly period that's patient, polished, and a huge amount of fun to play, and it's combined with Rockstar's best storytelling till date. This game is a rare quality, a meticulously polished open world to the outlaw era. A 200% recommendation for every single gamer out there.